continued in that vein. And we made a decision, and we cut our cost to the bone, and put the reports out at $10 each for those that are willing and able to pay. And if any individual doesn't meet either of those criteria, or both, and they want it for free, they only need to ask. So I don't see what the bitch is.
Fair enough. And here's the one. This is the one I wanted to comment on. I'm sure that most of our audience understands this, but there are always some who think, well, it's on the internet, it ought to be for free. And if that's the case, they need to ask themselves, how much do they pay for internet access? They don't get internet access free, and neither do I, and neither do you. Furthermore, they don't have anywhere near the production costs that I have to sit and listen to the show. I have a lot of production costs. You have a lot of production costs involved in creation of these reports. And unfortunately, there are some people who think it is God's will, or the will of the universe, that you and your family pay out of your pockets for them to get it for free.
For their entertainment or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know who wrote this, but it's not the person that's producing something and charging you for it a fair price that is a charlatan. It is you, if you think they owe it to you for free after they have to pay to produce it. Now that makes you a charlatan, not them. Okay, I tried, here's the last one. I tried to follow the web bot a while back, even paid the $10 for a few of those PDF files. I couldn't make any sense of the reports they sent, or what either George Uri or Clif High try to make of the results. They use very vague language in the reports that could potentially correspond to a wide variety of events. And you basically have addressed that as to why they are vague.
Well, and the vague issue, though, I mean, again, language is ambiguous at best. So we try not to be vague. We try to have as many specifics to cite individual upcoming things, especially for temporal markers. And in that regard, we try absolutely. It does float from report to report as to what we're actually reporting on. And anybody that's ever purchased can always ask for a refund if they have difficulty in understanding. A lot of that has to do with my presentation, and I agree. I just wanted to show the words that we gathered, and so the presentation, I agree, it's clunky. There's just no way of getting around it.
Well, let me say this about vagueness. I used to be international police, and I, at one point, was running an intel unit. And there was a situation where we had, from 3 different, very separated sources, some information about something that was coming up. So we knew what group would be involved. We knew what city it would take place in. We knew that it was soon, but we didn't know exactly when or exactly what. But we knew that much about it. So I reported it, and my commander said that's BS and gave me his reasons. And 3 days later, there were sniper attacks from the tops of buildings in that city up on the NATO forces in that area. And it was by this group that we had known about. So sometimes it's vague simply because it's vague. It came to you that way, and you can't clarify it anymore, and it just is what it is. So sometimes it's vague just because it is. And
we also have another issue, by the way, in a broad sense that needs to be discussed just in the concept of what we attempt to do. Basically, we're future tellers, and we're trying to tell you what the future is going to look like, even though we know the words we use now, telling you, describing you the future, may cause it to be altered if we accept the idea that the future, to a certain
positive rather than traumatic?
Yes.
Fair enough. Okay, folks, we're going to be stepping away for a break. When we come back, I've got a huge question that I want to ask that I think probably everyone, religious and non-religious, will want to have your ears cleaned and ready to hear what I'm going to ask and the discussion that follows after that. First, I have to find out if the webbot actually did predict what I'm going to say. I think it did. I read it in a couple of places. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the Kevin Smith Show. My guest this evening is Clif. He is half of the webbot team. And Clif, in researching for tonight's show, I went around. I sort of did a poor man's version of webbot. What I did is, instead of reading your reports, I wanted to read what people were publishing as being your reports. In other words, where they list, not word for word, but they say, okay, well, you know, here are the predictions for 2011 so far. And so
encapsulate it, right?
Yeah, just summaries of the predictions. So I wanted to see if there was sort of a common thread of understanding among them, among the various sites that I checked on this. I wanted to see if they were getting it. And I have to say that overall there was pretty much a common thread of understanding. One of the predictions that I read summarized, I found only on one site. I didn't find it on the others that I checked. This one says that apparently the webbot has provided the information that Jesus Christ has already returned to the earth and is here right now. Is that a correct